to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today's show is sponsored by Interior Design Business Academy and specifically their event, The Real Deal, taking place this May 4th, 5th, and 6th, 2022. In The Real Deal, Terri Taylor will teach you how to own that remodel job and get paid what you're worth. I know you probably know Terri by now. She was with us on the famous episode number 548 when she taught us her process on how to budget any room on the fly, even during your first consult, before you have measured or sourced a single thing. Killer show, I have to say. If you missed it, listen to it after this one. She was also with us on episodes 602, 662, and 710. And each time Terri is here, she shares practical strategies that she has learned in a 30-plus career in the industry. Terri holds both residential and commercial general remodeling Arizona contractors licenses and has qualified for her NCIDQ certification. Her Tucson-based design studio, Taylor Design Group, was a diversified design practice working in the areas of high-end residential design and remodeling, model home merchandising, hospitality, and medical and professional offices. Her studio has been the recipient of ASID Arizona South Chapter Design Excellence Award every year since 1986, and she received the ASID National Design Excellence Award in 2000. Terri's design work has been published in regional and national design journals, including ASID, Icon, and Wall Street Journal. Terri retired from her studio practice in 2015. Today, Terri is going to talk with us about how much time does it take to do a design job and how do I price it? Great topic, right? Yep. Here we go. Let's see what Terri has to teach us today. Hi, Terri. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
I love having you back on the show, Terri, because I, on the regular, refer, designers that I meet and speak with and coach your episodes because there's always some terrific takeaway, strategy, tactic that comes with every time you and I do a show. And it's just, I love it. And what it does, it says to me how in the weeds you are with teaching interior designers how to make their businesses better and more profitable, born out of your years of experience. It's just clear to me. So I'm thrilled anytime you come back to the show. And today, you're welcome. You and I are going to talk about the big conundrum question of how much time does it take to do a design job? And I know there's lots of conversation back and forth. I'm lesser experienced, so it takes me more hours. So is that fair? Or I'm more experienced, so it takes me less hours. Is that fair? So I know there's lots of good stuff around this topic. Why don't you get us started on it?
Well, yeah, there is a whole lot around there. There's just a lot of little pitfalls to fall into when you're trying to figure out how much time it should take and then how much time it does take. you know? And, often I hear designers say, "Oh, I'm so slow. I know everybody else is faster than me." I mean, it's a really self-depreciating comment, right? Really
Mm.
putting themselves down, so that's not very helpful. And then there's a whole nother piece about not being able to stay focused and chasing squirrels
Mm.
and going down rabbit holes and spending hours and hours researching something that shouldn't take that long. right? And
Right.
what happens is that there's so much time invested that you couldn't possibly bill it because it doesn't make sense with the amount of the value of the product you're looking for,
So
right?
let me
So
just
that's a
stop
that
you on that. Let me just stop you on that because, that's such a great point because there's a difference between I have legitimately spent 3 or 4 hours researching this because it was a specific need, function, nuance that required that, and spending 4 hours on something because I literally was just down a rabbit hole. And I think what you're saying is internally, we know the difference, right?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. However, we don't often control it very well.
Mm.
And it shows up in not billing all the time you're spending.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, happens all the time. We know that's and really that time is unbillable because it doesn't really matter if you're billing hourly or you're on a fee base. That's not time that you could include in this job. It's just kind of using your life up chasing the perfect chair or something. It's just, if you're new at this, there's that part too. If you're new, it will take you longer because you don't know where to look and you don't have the framework that somebody with years of experience has. So that part really can't be billed to the client either. Robert, but when you want to get down to the point where you really have billable hours that make sense,
Mm-hmm.
okay? The kind of the ballpark to look at this on is that you need to be around 15, maybe 20% of what that item or what that big budget is the amount of money that represents your time to actually find this piece, right?
Okay, that's
So
a very specific equation. I like that. Explain that to us a little bit more.
well, here's the goal. If think of it this way, if you worked at 20 billable hours a week and you charged $100 an hour, and you worked 50 weeks a year, that's 2 weeks of vacation, you'd make $100,000 clear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no product to buy, nothing. I mean, you don't even need an assistant to do that, right?
Right.
And at 150 an hour, the same thing would come up to 150,000 a year. But what we find is that we have people who are designers, who are putting their heart in it, and they're working 50 or 60 hours a week, and they're making 42,000 a year.
Mm.
It's like, so what's wrong with this equation? Well, it appears from this back end side, and we work a lot here at IDBA on the back end of these design jobs, how it is you actually do this production and make it come out right. And what happens is there's no framework or there's no initial plan for how you're going to do it. Right?
Right.
It's having not having a plan for your time in a design job is kind of like going shopping for furniture without a space plan. It's like you would never do that. You know,
Right. I
you
mean,
would
that's
make a
very
big
clear. The most
yeah,
the newest interior designer, just fresh popped out of school or just fresh popped and decided I'm going to be a designer, would never just start shopping and purchasing without a plan. But what you're
that's
saying
right.
is
That's right.
that the where there's a faux pas and where there is this not earning your value is rooted in starting on embarking executing the design project without that plan for how you're going to allocate your time and out your hours and your resources. Is that what you're saying, Tara?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
Exactly what I'm saying. And you know what? Time is not replaceable.
Right. Right. Right.
Time is the only thing that if you spend, you don't get it back.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And
Mm-hmm.
there's while designing is a blast, it really is fun, but so are our families and our children and our lives and it's like you want to spend your whole life doing that kind of stuff. It's just like it doesn't make sense and it just gets all out of whack because there's no plan to begin with. So the idea of going to design center to find a chair turns into an all-day project because look at all the cool things you saw on the way.
Okay.
We're in this this business where bright shiny objects are everywhere,
Right.
everywhere,
Right.
right? And every time you turn around, I mean, you ever go to market and get nothing done because you're running around looking at, oh, look at that, oh my gosh, look at that,
Mm.
oh, I got to see that, I got to touch that. You get into that pattern, and it's not all that time is not billable. It's just wasted, really, really wasted.
So how does it work, Terry? Like, for example, if you have a $5,000 sofa, okay, we're saying that
Mhm.
15% of that equals 750. If you bill it 150 an
Mhm.
hour, that's 5 hours. Yet if the sofa is
Right.
3,000 and you do the 15%, it's 450, and then
Mhm.
that comes down to 3 hours. So I'm literally just like
Right.
understanding how is it that you could spend 2 more hours on a sofa that costs more money, because what how does that work when you do your framework for teaching this?
Well, you could. You're gonna start with your budget first, and you say, "All right, if you've got $50,000 to do this living room, and 15% of that would be 7,500, and so that would give you 50 hours to do this whole
Mm,
job." So you're gonna
okay.
divvy this up all the way through. So you wanna look at the overall. I mean, that's the big plan, right? Gotta look at the footprint first. So you've got this 50 hours to get this done. The first thing you'd wanna do is block in your meetings and say how much of
Okay.
this is going to be taken up by presentation and when am I going to do those. Okay.
Okay.
Now, a living room with 50 hours could be done in 3 meetings, maybe 4.
Okay.
Okay. And if you're really good, you could do it in 2.
Okay.
Okay, I've got people doing that too,
Right.
but it depends. If you're newer at this, you might want to do a check-in. So you might want to do it in 4. So if you lay out those 4 meetings and put the dates on them, okay, you're on paper, so it's not written in stone. Then it's a matter of figuring out what you have to do between the programming meeting where you're going to do your measuring and get into it and photographs and that sort of thing, and that first meeting where you're going to show space plans and a concept and where you're going with this thing. How much time is that going to take you? What do you need to be
Mm,
doing?
I love it.
So we don't look at it that way. Then when we're talking about individual pieces, the difference between the expensive sofa has more detail in it, right? A
Okay.
$3,000 sofa comes in 3 fabrics and you get whatever it is. The cushioning is there, the legs are there. I mean, you're not doing all the options and details.
Right.
At 6 grand, you're probably doing more, right? And sofa could be 12,000 too, or
Right.
15,
Right. Right. Right.
right?
Right.
It doesn't mean you need to spend that many hours on it, but it does figure into your budget. You need to get all the detail right. And the higher the budget and the higher the quality of the product, the more detail you're getting into,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's a kind of a natural flow there that controls that. The other thing is that it's much easier to do an expensive job than a cheap job. Just
So
clearly, I'll
true.
just say that straight out. I don't like to use that word cheap, but you know, you know, if you're struggling to find product at that price level, don't take the job. It'll kill you.
Right.
I mean, it'll just destroy your time and you won't make any profit on it. Because quite frankly, $3,000 sofas are kind of hard to come by and you're not making any money on it.
Right. 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 Right.
So you'd
And,
be far better to be a little better client, right?
right, right. First of all, I love these insights here. It's totally true. And I just want to clarify one thing. First of all, I love that you said the more expensive an item, typically the more details that you need to determine and select. So that makes logical sense to me. And then the second thing is that I just want to clarify, we're not talking about the markup on these items at this point. We're talking about how you're arriving at the dollar amount that you will charge for your design fees and how you will allot your hours within that design fee framework, whether it's an hourly build or it's a flat fee build, because the same is true of both. Whether you're billing flat fee or you're billing hourly, you should be determining your fees based on the hours, is what you're saying, right?
Exactly,
Yeah. Okay. I
exactly,
just want to make
and
sure
there
we're
is
clear.
thank you, yeah, and that's good for clarifying that because there really is a a river, a canyon in between design and purchasing stuff, okay?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not the same thing, it doesn't belong in the same bucket. You are a designer, and designing is your business, and that is where your money is,
Right.
and your business provides purchasing as a customer service.
Love it.
And if you look at it that way, you're going to get much more focused in this timepiece and you're going to be way more profitable in your business.
I love it.
Even though when you sell a bunch of furniture, your checking account looks great. It looks like
Right.
you're rich.
Right.
Well, you're not. You got to pay for all that stuff, you know,
Right.
and you got to track it and you got to do all the things you have to do. So the higher you can get your time, the more profitable your business is going to run.
Right.
right?
Okay.
So we want to keep those things totally separate. One of the things I see people get stuck on is not realizing that a letter of agreement says that I'm going to give you three good selections for this chair you want, right? You're going
Mm.
to say, okay, I'll give you three good ones. It doesn't say I'm going to give you selections until you finally decide to buy one.
I'm sorry to laugh.
No, but yeah,
Right?
you
I
got
mean,
you got it.
that's the kind of,
Yeah,
loophole that we can get in, feeling like we need to
yeah.
keep reselecting because, our reputation and we want them to be happy and all the things, but there is a point that it's unreasonable.
Well, it is. It
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
And if you put those limits in your letter of agreement and you've fulfilled your contract and perhaps probably given her a little more, it's very easy to stand up and say, I've fulfilled my contract and plus some. If you want me to keep doing this, I'm happy to do so, but I got to charge you some time to do it.
Mhm. Right.
And then you have a boundary that's easy to stand on, and you don't get lost in this on and on and on thing. But I think that the problem lies in the mindset that that designers thinking their job is to sell furniture
Right.
or drapery or whatever it is they're doing is to sell it,
Right.
where this design part is to just design it.
Mhm. Mhm. And I
Make
also
sense?
just want to call out that where I was in a little bit of a too micro look at, oh, how do I reconcile that if I sell a $3,000 sofa I only make 450 and I sell a 5,000 I make 750. I love that you like, no, 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 we're looking at it as 50 hours and being very clear that if I sold this project at a design fee of 7,500, that means I'm telling myself, forget what I'm telling my client. I'm telling myself that
Hmm.
I can do this project in 50 hours. And so if I want to spend 7 hours on a sofa, then I might want to have to spend, 2 hours on a lamp. Like I've got to manage my time on the
Exactly.
back end. I love it. So instead of each individual item, it's
Exactly.
looking at the whole thing. I love it. And
Yeah,
that's the key, the
exactly. And you
managing of
manage
your
it
time, right? That's the where it lies.
precisely.
Okay.
Yeah, just like managing a budget.
Yeah.
So you have $50,000 to spend. You may splurge on that sofa and then make it up somewhere else,
Mhm.
right? We do that all the time. A couple of great pieces and then just kind of fill in the rest because it works. It's a good way to manage a budget. It makes things come out really well. So you look at your time, you manage time the same way you manage a budget.
Right.
You manipulate them around till they all fit in the package and it comes out the way it's supposed to,
Right.
right?
As
Rather
long
than
as
just
there's no
launching into it.
situations, as long as we're saying there's no situations where, like, in other words, what your whole thing is don't kid yourself. Don't say, well, I really needed 8 hours to search for that chandelier. It's no, check yourself and make
No,
sure that you are not looking in the rabbit hole for the very, 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 very most only perfect one that could be there, or that you haven't started looking at other things and that doesn't even have to do with the project and blah blah blah. That's the key here, right?
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And realizing that you can't bill 3 hours to find a $500 light fixture.
Right. Right.
Doesn't
Right.
make sense, right?
Right.
You
Right.
you couldn't do it on a one-on-one situation. You don't wanna do it within the big budget too.
Right.
So, and I see that's where people get in trouble with little jobs, because it
Mm.
takes too much time to do just a couple of things and they end up upside down in the hours.
And so it's a combination of, it sounds like to me, Terry, that being more efficient at this and being more profitable at this becomes a combination of your expertise in really understanding and knowing the sources, the ones that you can rely on. And if that means going to High Point or Vegas market or Dallas market to really know the brands that are in your wheelhouse and blah, blah, blah. It's your expertise at doing the sourcing and your discipline in managing what you're actually doing as you do the project.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, discipline is a good word. I know we don't like that word, but it
Right.
is true. It is
Right.
true.
Right.
If you have no discipline, you will end up working till 10 o'clock at night
Yeah.
doing paperwork. So,
Yeah.
and that's not so fun.
No,
You
and
know,
it comes
the
out
the
of a lack
way,
of confidence a lot of times, right? Where we're not sure
yeah,
of our
yeah.
expertise or we're not sure if this is that is the other thing. And that comes with time, but there are ways. So you teach a way
To
to
be
try and
around
manage
that,
that discipline part, that wringling the time. Tell us how you do that.
I do. I do. So the first thing you need to do is become aware of what your where your time is going. And the way you do that is you track your time. You write down at the end of the day what you did with all of your time, not just, 2 hours for Jones and 1 hour for Mary, that kind of thing, but the whole day, all the things you did. Including picking up the kids and going to the grocery store and picking up the laundry and rescuing a contractor and all the
Mm.
things that happen in a day. Because what you want to do over a period of weeks, and this is not just for you, it's not for anybody else, it's just for you to get a handle on where your time is going. It's the inventory. It's like the programming piece. It's like you need to
Mm.
know what it is that you're doing, okay? Because you begin to see a pattern and you begin to realize how much working time you actually have and how much you don't, all right? And there's a couple pieces here. You have to be brutally honest, okay? No cheating, all right? Or it's
Mhm.
not going to help you, right? And no judgments. I've gotten people into this sort of thing and thought, well, I should be able to do that faster. I know she does it faster, that kind of thing.
Mm.
You got to stop beating yourself up. Don't There's no judgment involved, just write it down. And the same with the comparison thing. Don't compare your inside with somebody else's outside,
Mm.
okay? It doesn't work. It just makes you feel bad. Just don't go there. Just track your time for a couple of weeks so you can see what's going on. Okay? You can really see what's happening. All right? And then you other over a couple of weeks you're going to get a pattern on that. Then once you've done that, when you go over to a job, you know what days of the week where the spaces are that you can actually do design work. I would recommend that you have a pattern that you set in your week. We know that as entrepreneurs, we don't like to have rules and frameworks, but if we don't, we fall apart. And and
Yes.
I know that's counterintuitive, but it's really important to have that framework. So I would really recommend that you have at least one day a week where you are in your studio and you do nothing but design work.
Mm.
Not but Okay, and schedule it in and schedule what you're going to do in blocks of time.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, I'd also like to see 3 or 4 hours a week specifically for working on your business
Mm.
because, that's kind of off subject. But quite frankly, if you don't work on your business, it will never grow. You're just going to keep doing the same thing.
Right.
So, in this block of time to get this stuff done, um, you want to make sure that you've got a good plan going here, and you can look at all the things you have to do and plan into that time. Know that you're not going to do it perfectly to start with, okay? You want to make a plan. It's some things will work, some things will not work. It's okay, okay? Nobody steps in perfect. It's just
Right.
not, right? And besides, we don't want perfect, right?
Mm.
Perfect is not attainable. It's like, I don't know. Brene Brown writes some lovely things about perfectionism, and if
Mm.
you've struggled with that, please read her books because
Mm.
it really just stops you in your tracks, quite frankly. But what we can do is get pretty much in control of how you do this and know that it's about practice and doing it repeatedly. It's like you don't get good at tennis by the first time you walk out there and swing a racket. I mean, it
Mm.
went over the wall probably or something. You got good because you did it over and over again, right? Until you got competent at it. That's what this takes. It's just another piece of your business to get into it. Number 2, you need to remember that you haven't been asked to create a masterpiece.
Mm.
Okay? This is not the Mona Lisa. It is not. In fact, design is pretty ephemeral. If that room lasts 5 or 6 years, it's pretty good. I don't
Mm.
know. I've been around a while. I've been back to things. I mean, I have clients who take care of things, and I have clients who just trash things, and you wonder why they wanted me to do that.
Right.
So it's like it's not like you're creating something that's going to be there forever. They're asking you for a good choice, a good educated choice. That's all. Now, one of the things I do want to share is I heard an interview with Stacey Abrams, and she was talking about she was writing romance novels, and I thought, how could that woman do that? She's got this huge political activist thing going on, and she writes romance novels.
Mm.
How could she possibly have that time? And she said, "Well, I gave up being perfect. I go for B plus." I went, "Oh." All right. So remember B plus.
Right,
B
right.
plus is all they're asking.
Right,
right?
right,
Right?
right.
If
Or
you
it's
want
B
perfect,
plus
do
in
it for
other
you.
areas, right? It's like, okay, so, the garden isn't an A plus, it's a B plus. So I get an hour a week left there to do something else toward my business, right?
Yeah,
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 yeah.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, because then your life starts balancing out and you don't get so focused on this one thing that you're trying to get perfect that you go down the rabbit hole, right?
Right.
And it and what is perfect? There's no definition for that even. It's
No,
just this it's unattainable thing, right?
exactly.
Uh, yeah. Number 3, stop wandering around the internet. Okay? That is not a good way to source. Okay? That's where the eye candy is. Yes, it's interesting. I mean, there you could chase squirrels on the internet all day long. I mean, I
Hmm.
have to curb myself. It's like I don't even want to go there because I'll just disappear. And
Right,
it's like I know that about myself, so I don't do it. I
right.
just don't even do it. The reality is that part of this back end of the business is to set up your vendor accounts ahead of time with your good, better, and best vendors.
Mm,
Okay, and I'm talking about an upholstery vendor that you really like that you could use for 90% of your clients, a case good line that you've got really good pricing on that you could use for most everything, and the same with lighting and fabrics and that sort of thing. Your go-tos where you already have the account set up, you have a rep that you can call and say, "Hey, I need da da da. You got anything like that?" And they'll send you things. You need to start using the assets you have, and this whole concept of choosing your good, better, and best vendors is kind of like your storefront.
mm,
It's kind of like that's what your business is based in. If you think of it, if it was instead of a virtual world, it was in a physical world, you would have things from these companies to show what you do.
right,
All right. Your business should not be run totally by whatever client walks in the door, and then you run out and try to open another account. That's not the way to do it.
right. I
Make
love
sense?
that. It does make
Yeah.
sense. And I
Yeah.
want to just clarify something here. So I love that you went into this little part there of to me it's being prepared, right? So you have your good, better, and best. You've done your research on which are the companies that you want to use. You've established
Mhm.
your relationships with your reps. You've opened your accounts. And I think that a lot of times when I'm talking with lesser experienced designers, there is that little push point of, well, it did take me 6 hours to find that sofa. And what I've said to them based on good conversation that I've learned from yourself and others on the show is, well, no, it took you 6 hours to learn about the right resources for you for that sofa, and then once you found the resource, it probably took you a half hour to find the sofa. And so the point
True.
is, right? And so the point is, like when you take to the, I've used the analogy of sports. So you just use the analogy of tennis. And I've said, Derek Jeter used to get, and I have to say used to now because he no longer plays baseball, but he's who I
Yeah.
identify with baseball. Derek
Uh-huh.
Jeter got up and, hit a home run in 3 to 10 minutes at in the game at the batting box. But he spent 12 hours that week in the batting cage with the batting coach. And that's, I think, what you're saying is once you have the seasoned experience behind you, it doesn't take you 6 hours to find something because you have all of that experience behind you. But in the beginning, that experience has to come off the client's time. That's your hitting the tennis ball, that's your doing the batting cage. And this way, if
Mhm.
you've spent 4 hours or 6 hours researching all the great sofa vendors that are in your good, better, best. When you're now on the clock for the client, you're going to it efficiently. Do you agree with that concept, Terry?
Exactly.
Yes, right.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right.
Right.
And that's what you're going for.
Well, and then you know what I like about this thinking about it this way is because when you are less experienced, and you could have 10 years experience, but maybe you're not experienced in, let's call it Lutron motorization. Maybe it's the first time you're going to do a
Mhm.
Lutron motorization job. And now you got to go down the
Mhm.
rabbit hole of learning about it and figuring out who you can, go source it out to, blah, blah, blah. But the reason I
Mhm.
like this separation of practice equals, preparedness and practice versus what
Mhm.
I actually do in real time billable for my client is because I think it separates and it helps the designer put the distance between that beat up mentality that they can get into. So if you do spend 6 hours, quote unquote, which actually is technically researching and learning and then ultimately sourcing, but you only bill 2 hours. When you do it in that cycle, you feel like, oh, I did this 6 hours. I only billed two. See, all the big designers tell me not to do this. And, all this podcasts say not to do this, but I just did it again. But whereas if you're just like, hey, this is my research time. This research will pay off for every project from now until the next 10 years, 5 years, let's call it 1 year, the way the world changes. And this is my going out for batting practice. And when I'm done next week, if I have to source a sofa or a light, I'm going to have this work done. Right? Do you feel like it kind of helps with the confidence too, is what I'm saying?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's education. And
Yes.
education is something that you take with you for the rest of your life.
Right. It works
Nobody
for
can
every
take that away from
project.
you.
Yes. But
Exactly.
right.
Exactly. And the levels, that's why, I don't know, for me, that was why design was so much fun because every project I had to go learn something new to be able to do it.
Right.
And that building of knowledge through the years is phenomenal.
Right.
It's and and for those designers who are really good at this and are still billing hourly, by the way, you're going to be way better off with fees because you do it in so much less time.
Right.
You can do that sofa in 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is it really 10 minutes or is it 30 years in 10 minutes?
Right, exactly. Well, that's the thing, right? That's the thing. But when you have stepped into your space on this, and you, like Sandra Funk says, stepped into your space on this, when you have stepped into your confidence on this, then you know that you came up with that piece in 10 minutes because you've done all that hard work. But when you're new doing it and it takes you 5 hours to do it and you beat yourself up for it, that's where the cat chases its tail, as opposed to saying,
That's
oh,
right.
if you, like you said with tennis, I'm going to go and practice tennis 4 hours a week, but I'm only going to have a match 1 day a week. Right? So it's that four
There you
hours of
go.
practice
Mhm.
that makes you do as good as you possibly can at that level in that match. And that's the
And
shift
that,
in
yeah,
thinking that I like. Okay.
that's great. That's a great analogy. Really
Yeah,
good.
love it.
Really, really good.
And so now
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
do this. Whenever you come here, we talk about the next event that you've got coming up, Terri. And so you've got an event coming up. This is 2022, May 4, 5, and 6. Tell us about what designers can expect at this next event of yours.
Okay, well, this is about the real deal. Okay. And the real deal is something I do once a year. It's a 3-day training, so it's for serious designers, absolutely. But it's got all of this back end time planning stuff in it because that's part of the keys of making these jobs work. But the real deal is about owning a remodeling job and getting paid what you're worth. And when
Mm,
I talk about owning a remodeling job, I'm talking about you being the lead. Okay.
mm,
I know that there's tons of designers I talk to who are all over that job site every day and they don't get paid for it. Right? They're just interested in it. They want it to go right. The heart's there and they're
mm,
not getting paid for it. In the real deal, I'm going to teach you how to make remodeling jobs highly profitable.
mm.
Actually, extremely profitable. I mean, when you go to our website and you look at all those testimonials about people who are making gobs of money, this is a big piece of it. This is an enormous piece. This is really the premier event for serious interior designers who want to bring consistent high profit remodeling jobs into their business. It's an intense 3 days. It's lots of breakouts. It's lots of training. It's lots of worksheets. We dance, by the way. We move because that helps. It's fun. It's fun, and two, we know that when you can move knowledge down into your body, it moves to a different part of your brain where it becomes subconscious, and you really know it, and you don't have to
Mm.
recall it. It's just there. So we always do a bit of that just to make that happen, and it helps. 3 days on Zoom is 3 days on Zoom,
Yeah,
so
it's not
getting
so
up and
easy, right?
jumping down is a good thing, you know. So when you own this remodeling job, it means that you're the lead. You get paid to design it. You get to order the product, as much of the product if you want, or not if you want. But if you want that profit point, you can. It's all of it, and you get paid for the construction support. All of that stuff gets in there. All right. Now, the way that happens is by helping the client step into a smaller letter of agreement. We call it an exploratory, where you're going to get just enough of the design going to actually be able to run numbers and run prices on it. Because what happens to a lot of designers doing remodels is that the contractor goes in there and tells the client it's 100,000 to blow this wall out and redo the kitchen, you know, the typical thing
Mm,
everybody's doing. And the reality is he has no idea. And in his mind, light fixtures cost $100 and tile is $2 a foot. And it's like, that's not what your client's going to do. But if
right.
you base your fee or your letter of agreement or what you're going to do on that amount, and then you get into it and it's really 180,000, you lose. All
Right.
right. And the client loses because they're way out of budget. They had no idea this is going to happen to them. And the contractor's saying, well, your designer is really expensive. I mean,
Uh,
throw you under the bus.
right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So this is a way to step into those jobs and be seen as the trusted advisor, you know, the person who we can trust to guide us through this and come up with what our budget really is for this job. And when you say that to a person, so that I'm going to come and pull this whole piece together so that you know exactly, you know, what your budget's going to be, and we can have this talk about money, and so that you can make good decisions about your money. And it's like the golden phrase. You would
Mm.
see people light up going, really? That's phenomenal. Oh, that's great. You know? And so what happens is it puts you into the position of being the trusted consultant. There's no sleazy selling. There's none of that in there. You're just stepping in first to say, okay, what really is this? All right. Now, it's not programming in the sense that we were taught in school. It's actually out of sequence a little bit with how they teach design, but they teach design without any money in it,
Mm,
which
right.
doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, it's like we
Oh,
all
there's
know
that
that,
part.
yeah, yeah. Money runs the whole show, right? So if you start there and do it in a way where people can talk easily about money, because it's a tricky subject, right? When you say what's your budget, you know what happens. You get I don't know,
Right.
even when they do. So
Right.
you know we got a bunch of ways to get around that one, but this is a way in a construction job where you can get into real numbers so that you have a real scope of work and a real budget, and then you can have a real fee. And because you've helped them get to this point, it's absolutely simple and easy that you just step into being the leader in this job.
So, how does that work exactly? I hear what you're saying because I've actually can recall a designer one time asking me, find out, Luann, find out for us, how do we work around when we know that their builder has given them or the GC has given them a budget that we know includes too low a pricing on light fixtures and tiles and so forth. But at the same
Hmm.
time, am I going to sit there and put 8 or 10 or 15 hours into coming up with an accurate budget when we haven't gotten agreement on the job yet? So, what you're saying is that you actually are instead like that designer, I think, in that moment thought that she had to do that at no charge in order to convince or not convince but to inform the client that this builder is not giving you the right budget. So you're
Hmm.
saying make that a little pre-contract type thing.
Exactly. It's like a little baby letter of agreement to get started, and it allows them to stick their toe in the job, and it allows you to figure out what the scope and the budget actually is,
And how do
right?
you
And
how do you
actually,
do that? Like how do you say, is it something where you just say, look, respect all day long for your builder. He or she's a great person. However, in my experience, the builder budget is not realistic, and here's some of the areas where, for example, like I might say, there's however many square feet of tile in your kitchen, and this is an example of what's the allowances, and this is an example of what you have in your house existing would cost. And then you just say, so I suggest here's my fee, let's get it to real? Like because I can see some consumers just being like, look, if the builder said it was 100K, I'm going to make them stick to it. And you're looking at the designer, the client going, okay, famous last words. So how do you do it without throwing the builder under the bus, because you're then going to theoretically have to work with this person, right?
Well, no, actually, if you explain to him what you're doing, he's gonna love it. Or I'd say 90% of them will. There's some good old boys who don't get it, of course,
Okay.
but for the most part, it's like you're doing the footwork with them, and you're not, and it's not gonna cause all those overruns on the back end that people get
Mm,
so upset about. Right? So it's pretty easy to do, because you can talk about money with clients if you talk about what things cost. And we talk about finishes, about countertops, and you're doing a little bit of programming with them to start with. So what do you want? And they're showing these fabulous quartz countertops. And you can, if you do your homework and have a little bit of background, you can say that's fabulous. That those countertops probably in this kitchen, depending how we range it, maybe 15, $18,000. And they're going, really? And yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. Not what your builder doesn't know what your finish is going to be. He's really just talking about construction. So let's talk about the appliances. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. And so what you suggest doing is doing some design work, what this possibly could be, right, in a very rough way, very rough, sketchy way, and looking at all the finishes that they want, and having the contractor look at those rough drawings and have him give the labor price that's going to take all of those. Then you could figure out what all those finishes cost and do a big Excel budget that's got all this stuff on it, along with a lovely concept to make it exciting, and be paid for that work. Right?
Right. And
And then when you present it, it's like, okay, let's make good decisions here. Okay, I know that you were looking at spending 100. What you want, we see, is actually about 160. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about what the bang for the buck is. What are things that maybe don't need to be there? What could we shift to make this work? So you get this real conversation going about money and scope and what you can really have. Many times they'll just step into it anyway.
mhm.
Go, you know what? That's what we want. Great. It's 180 instead of 100. You can go back to Mr. Contractor and say, hey, here's what's going on. Now, if they call you first, um, you can end up owning the job, because the contractor will come in after you. If the
Mm,
contractor's there first, he kind of owns the job.
right.
So you have to talk to him about how much of that product he's going to order and how much you're going to order. All right?
Okay. Okay.
It depends on who owned this first,
Right,
right?
right, right.
But yeah, but a lot of times they call us first, right? So
Right.
there's no reason why you can't step in that way.
So
So
do you suggest, like, so if the contractor is the first, do you
mhm.
suggest that once you've been contacted by the client, that you have your discovery, you make all the decisions that you do think you can go ahead? Do you have a conversation with, like, what, say maybe you've never worked with a contractor before you suggest the baby step of the actual budget? Do you go to the contractor and say, hey, I'd love to partner with you on this, blah blah blah, in my experience, it's their budgets are usually, I'm sure you've had, change order dismay at people halfway
Mhm.
through because things cost too much.
Yeah.
Support me in the bit this pre budget contract. Like, how do you get them on the same page?
Well, really, just like that. And I will supply you, before you ever start, with a complete list of all the finishes, so you know exactly where you're going.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right?
Okay.
Contractors make their money on being able to get in and out of a job quickly.
Right.
And if it goes on and on and on, they lose their tushes, right? So having all the specifications done, period, and not having to go, oh, we haven't decided what that is, and you lose your crew and they go somewhere else, and you can't afford to do that these days. So they're going to be very happy about that. The other thing is that they don't have the time, energy to put into. I mean, they could do this the whole thing too,
Mm.
except that they're not the ones saying, "Hey, pay me X dollars, pay me $4,500. I'm going to do this first piece of the design for you." Okay,
Mhm.
this isn't a standalone piece. It's actually the first piece of getting the remodel started.
Right.
And, if you decide that you want to go ahead with this and you want me to do it, I will take and credit this part into my design fee. Otherwise, you have a really good chunk of work done here. Now you're going to know exactly what you want, exactly what it's going to cost, and the direction you're going.
Okay,
So it
so
becomes very easy.
Okay,
Mhm.
so that's a nice clarification there that you are saying to them, to all of the parties involved, the consumer and the builder, this really is the first step, no matter what you do, if you're going to do a well run project. And so the work is not wasted. And to the consumer, you're saying, if you continue with me, then this gets basically you're saying gets credited, but it becomes part of the project fees. You're not going to charge another one
Exactly.
because you just did this work. And
I
if
did
you
this part.
right, and if you don't work with me on this, if you decide to do something differently, this is an actual viable thing that you can take. It's not wasted time, money, or energy. This is something you will take to launch this project, whether you and the builder go off to the sunset alone or, whatever, right?
Exactly, or
Yeah,
you do it with somebody else entirely different. Yeah,
right.
it's a still has great value because now they know what they want actually costs. And
And
that is a big scary thing for
how do
clients.
you suggest that a designer price this service? Do you say, like, if you were doing if you knew from the beginning you were doing the full service from A to Z, what would you charge for this service and just slice it out, right? Is that it? Or is there a rule of thumb, or how do you do it, Terry?
Well, this you wanna look at hours, you wanna look at
Mm,
meetings first, you're gonna have to do programming, you're gonna have to meet the contractors there to get takeoffs and labor prices, and you're gonna have to present it at the end. So
okay.
if you lay it out that way, and then realize you're going to have to do a footprint, you're going to have to measure and do a footprint and do some sketchy version of what this possibly could be. Not three versions, not a finished one, not a 3D walkthrough, none of that. Just the basic. Here's a logical way because essentially, unless you're flipping the plumbing to the other side of the room, you could do it this way, you could do this way, this way. It's not hugely different.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like a furniture plan. It's going to take the same number of furniture, kind of regardless of what you're going to do. So that can be pretty typical. So really, we're just talking about the hours it takes between those three meetings to put that together. I see them running on say a kitchen remodel, maybe 35, $4,500. On
Okay.
a big full house thing where we're doing a lot, probably in the 85,
Okay.
89, something like that.
Okay.
It should just what I'm seeing now is it represents about a third of the total budget, of the
Okay.
total design fee budget,
Okay.
if you looked at it that way.
Well, and that's
Okay?
a very logical way to approach it because, like you said, they're going to need this anyway, whether they go full
Yeah,
steam ahead thinking the 100K, estimate from the builder is accurate or not. At some point, this is going to have to be done. And what you're encouraging designers to understand and to express is this will have to be done regardless of if you accept the 100K or whatever budget from the builder. The only difference, and the major difference here, is you will then begin your project with a much more accurate understanding of how close to 100K this actually is going to be. If you are happy with
exactly.
100K, that's great, but are you still going to be happy with 140 or 160 or 180, right? And so you
Mhm.
get to find out now before you're 6 months into it and upset with everybody because it's all costing more than that they
Well,
quote unquote said.
e exactly, and at that point, you don't have a choice.
Right. It's
They're
too late.
stuck,
You're knee deep
right?
into it. Right.
It's too late.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly, exactly. And
So
so what
good.
we found is clients are thrilled,
Yeah.
absolutely thrilled. I mean, you are the hero.
Right.
And
Right.
it's a great position to be in instead of being the one that gets thrown under the bus,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
The other piece of this is that those clients actually want the furniture too. Even though they're saying, I don't know if we can afford that right now, maybe we'll wait till later to do that. They want it because that's what they see on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They see the whole finished ta-da at the end. So it behooves you to do, as part of this exploratory, is to do a budget on the fly and figure out the furnishings and interior design piece and put it in that budget so that they know what that is.
Right.
Because You're not saying that you have to do it now. You're just saying this is what you're looking at to do that. Now, what we found by doing that is many more clients step into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
As soon as they finish, because there's excitement created about it, because you have to talk about what the room's going to be in order to do the finishes.
Right, right,
Right? I mean, you
right.
can't do it. One doesn't exist without the other. So you've already discussed it. They're already formatting this in their mind. They're already thinking about how cool this is going to be. So once you finish all those finishes, then it's time to you want to go ahead and get the furniture ordered. This would be the time. Takes forever to get these days.
Mm-hmm.
And very often they will just step in at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It's really kind of interesting. And I say you wanna do this right after you finish the finishes, finish all the finish selections, get the whole thing done, off to the builder. Okay, that part's complete. Because if you do it now and get it paid for now, then the builder overruns aren't gonna suck up your budget.
Mm.
Because because that's what happens to the furniture, is by the time they get to the end, all the overruns, the this and that, whatever they added, that sort of thing, takes up the money that was reserved for the furniture, and they're too tired and not interested anymore,
Right, right,
right?
right, right. And they're
Right.
they're disillusioned on the whole process at that point
Yeah.
because it just
Oh,
feels
yeah.
like another hit every other day, right?
Oh, yeah, and you
Yeah.
know what it's like to live with remodeling. I mean,
Oh,
it's
brutal.
we could do a whole we ought to do a whole 'nother hour of how to help people during remodeling and keep their spirits up, you know?
Exactly. Well,
That's
I love this because, when as typical, when I hear the leaders in the industry like yourself and others explain from their experience how they approach the conversations with the clients, I'm always processing it from the standpoint as the client because I'm not an interior designer. And so I'm thinking, well, what would I think if you said that to me? Would I be like,
mhm.
yeah, right? Or I'd be like, huh, that's great. And I have to say, when you were just describing that when you're doing the budget for construction there, the real budget for construction, to include the furnishing budget, as a consumer, I like that. My brain went, I like that. And we had the exact situation, Vin and I, last fall. We had my good friend Jessica Madison, who is a landscape architect. She's amazing. If any of you need a landscape architect for your projects, she's in the Connecticut area. She did a plan for us for our new home at the shore. Okay. And we worked with it together. She came and visited us, blah, blah, blah. And and she gave us a lot of good advice on how to get an accurate budget from the landscape company, the construction company that was going to do it, and what the pitfalls were, and to make sure to ask these certain questions. And I loved all of that. So that's good advice for each of you as well. But what was interesting is, Vin and I kept saying to her, we want it to look good, but we're not going for it here. We're not going for our lungs. Just get us, to something that works for our family and our needs. We're not going for our lungs.
Mhm.
And so it was great. But when he sat down to give us the plan, this is exactly what he said. Went through the whole thing. He said, and by the way, I included a lighting plan in here if you thought you wanted it, right? And it was
Uh-huh.
and I was like, and it was so funny because Vin's knee jerk reaction was, oh yeah, we weren't going to do lighting, and I just sat there and I'm like, oh, but we kind of would love to have lighting, like, right?
Yeah,
And
wouldn't it
and
be
so
nice to
it was,
have lighting? Yeah,
yeah, and so it was
yeah.
literally exactly what you just said. And in this case, we purchased it at the same time as opposed to the analogy with furniture. But the analogy is the same. If we're sitting there and as a couple, we're trying to budget for the construction, and you've already helped me by saying, hey, your builder's budget is really not the finishes you're accustomed to. You're not getting that quartz in the bathrooms. You're not getting that marble slab in the kitchen. This is a realistic budget. If you then also tell me, and based on my experience, this is going to be a reasonable furniture budget, what happens is just what you said. Now, two people that went from looking at a 100K budget to a 180K budget that now just became a 250K budget, we're going in eyes wide open. And the two of us can in private duke it out, right? He could say, we are not going ahead this one from 50 to 250. Or I can say, no, we have to. Or, we can just say, okay, we now know that we just went from 100 to 250. Let's just plan this and space this out. But yes, what are we going to do? We're going to do this complete renovation and we're not going to have any furniture in it, right? And so I have to tell you, as a consumer, I want all of that information. It's like I say all the time, tell me everything ahead of time. That's why I called you. You're the expert. I would so much rather hear the big pill now than be swallowing the bad medicine all through the months and have to look at myself or my husband 8 months in and go, wait, we need another 100 for furniture? Whoa. Right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Love it. I love it.
exactly that.
I
Yeah,
love it.
works really well. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know what? It's really easy to do too.
Yeah.
This
No,
is the
I
better
did say
part.
that it would
It's
be.
really easy. Yeah,
Well, and
yeah.
also here's why
Well,
it's easy. If anyone is like, nah, I don't know about that. Here's why it's easy. Because I haven't signed anything with you yet. You're presenting me your expertise, your knowledge, your experience on what you know I should expect in this project. And I still have the
mhm,
decision to say yes or no to any portion of it. And we have the decision, as a consumer to say, okay, no thanks on the lighting or no thanks on the furniture
mhm,
package, right? But if you get
exactly.
me, halfway through, if he had done the project halfway, and was halfway doing it and he said, oh, too bad you never put lighting on this plan. I'd be like, and Jessica would have said to me, Lou, you told me to do bare
Mhm,
bones. And I would have been like, you're right. But then I'd be like, well, how much does lighting cost? And if he hit me with that number in the middle of it, Finn would have killed me. He would have been like, Lou, no. But it's the same money
mhm.
out of the household, is what I'm saying. It's just, it
Yeah,
sounds better
it's
when I know going in, right?
well, and people feel in control.
Right.
They feel informed and in control, and that's where you want them to be, right? And not be
Exactly.
deer in the headlights. And it's hard enough as it is without without doing that part.
That's right.
So it makes an incredible difference, right?
Right.
And the other thing is when you present this as a system, this is how we're going to do it, and this is the way it'll work. People have great confidence in that.
Right.
Okay, it's way it has way more resonance than the contractor who walks in and goes, yeah, 100,000, that'll probably do it. Right?
Right.
There's a big difference between the way those are approached, and you're coming in as the pro, and it really changes the whole dynamic of the relationship.
It really
So,
does. Um, I was not at all put off by his suggesting the lighting package, and it was not inexpensive. Okay. I was
mhm,
more like, oh, thank you for thinking of that because I kept
yeah,
putting the brakes on my architect, right? I knew I kept putting the brakes on her, but having it there in front of us, and like you said, then we felt like in control of it. It's our choice to do it. So I want
mhm,
designers to take that away is in the beginning, assess what somebody is asking you for and don't worry about presenting with everything that's going to create that vision because in that moment in time it's a choice. It's not like you said, it doesn't feel like chaos and it doesn't feel like you didn't tell me and I didn't know and blah blah blah. I love it.
exactly. It's an informed choice. They
Mhm.
have the information and can make good decisions about their money.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love
And you
it.
know what? Yeah, it's great. If people want something, they find the money,
Well, that's the truth.
right?
That's
I mean,
that's exactly
it
it.
is.
I mean, when I told Jessica, she was like, "That's nowhere near the budget you said." I'm like, I know, but it was great, and I love what you did, and we just wanted to put the icing on the cake with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and there it is. Yeah.
Magically, we could afford the lighting. Uh
Magically appeared.
oh, it's so
Just work a
funny,
little
but
longer. It's
yeah,
okay.
right. Well, and
Yeah,
it's so funny
that's
too
great.
because you don't know what the drivers are for different people. And so like the what the push buttons are and I'll share with you. See, the push button for this was when the guy suggested the lighting and Vinny he goes, well, how much is it? And he told him and he was just like he literally didn't even look at me because he didn't think we had he was right to not even look at me and say no because it was never part of the agreement in our conversations, mine and
Mhm.
Vin, right? And he
Right.
was like, oh no, we don't need the lighting. And I just was sitting there and the guy looked at me and he saw me not saying anything and he
Uh-huh.
just and I just looked and I said, well, hang on a second there. and and here
Yeah,
was the driver that neither of them could have known. And I said to Vin, I said, listen, when we built our other house, because 25 years ago we built the house
mhm,
that was our house, right? And I said, when
right.
we built that house, we we did it to the level we wanted to do it, but with an eye to the budget. Like literally, okay, Luann, this is how much you have for lighting. This is how much for this. I said, and Vin, I remember when we did the landscaping, we had a wonderful landscape architect. We had a great company. We did a great job. And I said, but I remember then the lighting package just being such a big percentage that the two of us looked at each other and said, we'll do the lighting later. And I said, and we lived in the house for 20 years and we never did the exterior lighting, right? Because you need to buy sneakers, you need to buy, spend for tuition on colleges. And every single day, Terry, I came home to that house in the evening and I
Uh-huh.
would say, this would be so much more beautiful if it had exterior lighting. And then I would get into Luann practical mode. Luann, who cares? You have a beautiful house, you have a great life, the heck with lighting. And so I told this story to Vinny, and he looked at the guy and goes, put the lighting on. God forbid the lady come home to her house for the next 20 years and not love her.
It's dark.
But we're at a different stage now, right? Colleges are paid, right?
Yeah,
So that's the
yeah,
thing. You can't,
exactly.
I always say, don't save your clients money, right? Give them all the professional expertise available to you in your wheelhouse. We'll decide what we want, right?
Let them choose. Yes,
Yes.
let them choose.
Yep.
Do not make up things in your head. Make up
Right.
stories in your head
Right.
about what they can afford or not afford. Just
Exactly.
give them the real facts and let them,
Exactly.
yeah, and you can offer to help. You can offer help to work out a budget. If you want to talk about what I think the bang for the buck is and stuff that doesn't
Mm,
really count, I'm glad to talk about that.
that's right.
You can talk to people about what things cost. You
Mm,
can't talk to a client about what they are comfortable. I mean, that's the conversation between the husband and the wife, right?
yes.
You can't get in that conversation. You get in the conversation of here's what all this stuff that you want costs,
Right.
okay? And no pitch, no push, just this is what it is.
Basically,
What makes sense
I
for you?
love what you said. It's like you can talk about what things cost, but not what they can afford or what's important to them to spend, right? Just
Precisely.
I love it. Just the facts of this is what it cost. Like he did. This is what lighting costs. I think it looked great. Do you want it? I'm like, I'll take one.
Exactly,
Love it.
exactly.
Love it. Love
Well,
it.
with
Love it.
our exploratory agreements, you get paid for it. You get paid to do that part.
Mm,
And we used to do that stuff for free. Now we just get paid for it, and essentially you just kick it into the fee for the whole job. Once you land on the budget, say 280 or whatever it is, you're looking at 10 to 12% of that number being your fee.
mm,
Okay, and that's quite a bit.
that's right. I love
It's
it.
quite a bit.
I love
Yeah,
it. And so you
yeah.
teach all of
Starting
this
there.
in your real deal, the
Yes.
real deal.
Absolutely, and the real deal. It's May 4, 5, and 6. These are full days. It's full day training. Really powerful, quite frankly, really powerful. Now, we just opened the cart just today. All
Oh,
right, we're in the early bird pricing. It's 797 for 3 days. That's an opening price. Now it will go up to 1297 in a few days. So it's the sort of thing you want to jump on now. You just go to interiordesignbusinessacademy.com and you'll see the pop-up. Just follow the pop-up and it'll take you to a page that has a ton of information. It should answer all your questions. If it doesn't, you can always call us, send us a note, no problem there. Um, we have a couple of early bird bonuses that go with this early bird pricing. And the bonus number one is a copy of Project Time Estimating System, which is one of our classic trainings. It came right out of my studio, and it's how you figure out by hours how to figure out a design fee. I mean, we do a lot of things with percentages and that sort of thing. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you've got to, like writing specifications on new construction. There's no way to take a percentage of construction. It doesn't work, right? You got
mm,
to figure out how many hours you got in there and actually pull that piece off. This is the tool you use to do that. It's set up in a big Excel sheet, and you just follow the directions. You drop in your time, your assistant's time, that sort of thing, and it'll calculate fee for you. So it's a very
wow.
cool thing. It's a 14.95 training. So we're including that on it's a download. And bonus number two is the wealth consciousness workshop. This is a little private small workshop with me, and it's all about wealth consciousness. It's about expanding. your ability to receive more,
Mm.
which is kind of sounds like a big concept. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we think this is what we're talking about is getting you design fees bigger than you have ever realized that you would ever get.
Mm.
Right? And so it takes a little expansion of your consciousness to be able to do that. Okay? To be able to allow that much abundance in, to actually feel what wealth feels like.
Mm.
Right? It's very interesting, and we have a good time with it. It's just smallish. It'll be our IDBA students and the the few people that we invite from the design community at large. But it will expand your ability to receive more. We play with. We don't play with. We have awards. We have a silver bracelet award for anybody who breaks $10,000 with one design fee,
Mm.
because we know that 10 grand is a big amount of money to ask for yourself.
Mm.
Okay. And we we have a silver bracelet award for everybody who does that. And there's, but it happens very, very often. We last year added another level. We had 5 people who broke 50 grand for a
Nice.
design. Yeah.
Nice.
Sweet. Sweet. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. They got a bigger bracelet, a bigger silver. It was really fun. Very, very fun. So that's what that wealth consciousness piece is about. All right. So that's a bonus. That's an 1897 value. So there's 3394 value of bonuses in this early bird thing, but you need to you need to do it quickly in the next day or two. You want to jump
Right.
in there and grab your seat. So the real deal is about owning that remodeling job and getting paid what you're worth. Those two big pieces are in there. We'll tell you exactly how to do it. There's lots of worksheets. There's lots of scripts, how you say it, how you figure it out, all of those pieces, how you write the contract, examples of the letters of agreement so that you have something to riff off of. All of those pieces are in there. So it's a really huge, huge piece. So mark your calendar for this training. It's May 4, 5, and 6. I'm really excited about it. And yes, it is all day. This is for serious designers if you're into this. The best deal tickets are open now. The card is open, $797. There's also a to-pay version in there if you want to do that, spread it out a little bit. So you just go to interiordesignbusinessacademy.com and follow the pop-up. You'll get to the big page that has all the information, lots of Q&A stuff on it. Should have all the information you need. So I'd love to see you there.
I love
Come
it.
grab your seat.
So good.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
So good, Tara. I have to say, every single time you come on the show, you always just peel back a little bit more on this mystery on how to have the conversation about the fees and how to get your game up about being more efficient in doing your design projects. And I just, think it's terrific. And I appreciate the time you spent with us. And I thank you for sponsoring this show, too.
Thank you so much for providing this lovely service for all of us. We really appreciate what you're doing as well. Thanks so much.
Always outstanding information, right? I mean, you can hear the 30 plus years of experience that Terri has in the industry, plus all of these years of teaching her colleagues, you, the business end of interior design. So if you think that this is right for you, the real deal, then I encourage you to go and look at it and look and see if you want to be part of this 3-day event. Understanding the back end and understanding how long it does take to design and plan is really just foundational to knowing if you're running profitable projects, right? So this event is for you if you are a serious interior designer who wants to bring consistent, high profit remodeling jobs into your business ladder of services. The early bird card is open now, and it is a one-time payment of $797, but just in a few days on April 12th, 2022, it is going up from $797 at early bird to $1297 starting on April 12th. So if you're thinking you want in, don't hesitate. And don't forget the bonuses, the project time estimating system, and the wealth conscious workshop, okay? These are valued at $33.94. So mark your calendars, 3 full days of training this May 4th, 5th, and 6th, 2022. Go to interiordesignbusinessacademy.com. Thanks tons, Terri. You always, always rock our world. Thank you for joining me today. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. If you'd like to know more about me, my books, or Luann University, go to luannnigara.com. And if you want to learn more about exciting windows, where you can get education and resources to build a better window treatment business, go to excitingwindows.biz. Have an excellent day.